Hi, everybody. This is Vinyl Man Jev of Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Show, also one of the marketing assistants at the Wall Street Theater here in Norwalk. And one of our upcoming shows is Funny Women of a Certain Age. I'm here with Carole Montgomery. Honored to be here with you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's 8,000 degrees here in New York
Yes.
City. It's just like it was like, oh, it was like May and June was like, oh, this is nice. We're gonna have a nice, and then July, hello, goodbye. It was just like, okay, now it's hot and humid.
Yeah, welcome to New England, where if you don't like the weather, 10 seconds later it'll be changed to something that we don't like even more. But
Exactly.
we're getting
Very
used to it. I'm
true.
in Connecticut, so it's not too bad, but it's still hot. It's ridiculous. But I wanted to ask you to get right into our show. We do have you guys coming on July 29th here at 8 p.m. What was the main idea behind Funny Women of a Certain Age? How did that all come about?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you.
No problem.
Actually, what had happened was I was doing a podcast with a bunch of other female comedians over a certain age. Everyone always goes, "What was the podcast?" I said, "I'm 65. You expect me to remember my name?" Something that happened literally 7 years ago. Anyway, so we were hanging out and we had the best time. We were just laughing and we were telling stories, and it was a I remember having to get on a subway to go home. And when I was walking to the subway, I called my husband. I said, I have so many friends that are over 50. And, whatever the reason is, they're not big stars, but they make good livings, but they're just not, a household name. I said to him, I said, I think there's something here. I think there's a show with women of a certain age. And my husband, who's been with me, been together over 40 years, he said, because you throw enough crap on the wall, something will stick. And he goes, this is it. He goes, this is going to be the thing.
Oh,
And
awesome.
it was shocking how fast it happened because I came up with the idea. I was talking to some other comics. A friend of mine who had a festival in Brooklyn at the time called the Cinderblock Festival.
Ooh,
She said, we'll host it. And so that first show, Judy Gold was on the show, Ginny Garofalo was on the show, and some other great local over 50 women. I had a millennial open the show as a joke,
oh,
and from
nice.
there we had somebody who was at the Crane Theater who said, "Oh, I think my boss would like this," and we met, we did a show there, and then he offered me a residency, and
Wow.
we're in our sixth year now.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
That's
from the
awesome.
Crane came the showcase for the networks because we started to talk to networks. And then somebody said, why don't you just bring everybody into the theater, let them see the show. And we got the deal with Showtime soon afterwards. And it's sad. What's funny about it is it happened really fast. In
Awesome.
show business, things don't ever happen this fast.
No.
I came up with the idea in September and we had a deal by April. And that's
Wow.
highly, highly unusual.
No, that means that was the right idea. That was it. That was the
That was it.
manifestation right
Exactly.
to it. I love that.
Everybody went, yep, we got it. No,
Yeah,
right.
no, no worries. When there's no
Yeah,
resistance, that means you put the work in that equaled that out. That is total. That's really cool to hear that. I
it
love
was great.
our show started with just doing music, and then we got into interviewing a few actors and stuff like that. And you're our first comedian, actually, which is very
Ooh,
cool. So first comic, I should say. But it's
yes,
cool that music unites us. As we were talking before recording, I'm wearing a Stone shirt and you're wearing a Monkey shirt.
I'm wearing a
So
monkey
the
shirt.
music
And
is represented here.
yeah,
That's
well,
awesome.
okay. So I'm married to a musician.
Nice.
My son is a musician.
Oh,
Of
there you
course,
go.
the line I use is that I'll be working the rest of my life. My mother-in-law is a retired Broadway musician.
Wow.
So there's music is everything. And
That's
my
awesome.
son works in he manages a few venues down in the city and stuff. And
Ah,
my husband works on Broadway. So yeah, music is definitely represented here in this podcast.
very cool. Yeah, we definitely. I remember going down to the city for the first time for one of my VIP experiences. I went to the Cutting Room, which was really cool
Okay, yeah, it's
experience.
a great place.
Got to go there for VIP. I met some very famous musicians, and including May Pang. I got to actually meet
Yeah,
one
she's
of the
great.
the Lost Weekend folks, and she's amazing. And her film was amazing to see, and just to see her story and how
Yeah,
incredible that
she's a
was.
pretty great lady.
But we'll turn it back to you. What got you into comedy? When you started right in the very beginning, what was that itch, that calling for you to go right into it?
Wow. Well, back in the day, in the Stone Age when I started, my dad, I always credit my dad. My dad was a very, very, very loud, um, funny man. He
Mhm.
turned me on to, He turned me on to the Marx Brothers. We used to watch Sunday morning. I mean, it's different now because TV is so different.
Right.
But back then, we only had uh, 5 channels. We had the major
Wow.
networks, and then Channel 5, Channel 9, no 6, and Channel 11. Anyway, I we used to watch, all those like the Bowery Boys and Abbott and Costello, and
Oh wow.
my father himself was very funny. And then years later, I found this out. I mean, I knew about it, but I remembered it. My father was a high school teacher. So when every summer he would work up in the Catskill Mountains as a bartender to make extra money.
Oh.
So when I was a little girl, I'd sit with him while he was setting up the bar. And Rodney Dangerfield would walk in.
Ugh.
He was, because he was doing a sound check. He wasn't Rodney Dangerfield then. He was Jack Roy. This was even
Oh
before.
wow.
This
Oh
was
wow.
before he
There's
came.
history there. Wow.
Toady Fields came in. So many. So I like sitting at a bar. I'm 5, 6 years old. I'm sitting at a bar, and I said this to my father just years later. I said, "You're the reason I became a comedian because it's your fault." So whenever you complain that I didn't, go to college and become, an accountant or a lawyer, it's because of you.
It's always good to blame the parents, on
Always.
the always good.
Always.
They put up with us for so long, and then it's like, you know what? Blaming you for the
Yeah.
career that I have doing well in and support and love doing. I love that.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask, what was it like to perform for over 10 years in Las Vegas? I mean, that's the strip there. That's the main thing. How did that come all about, and what was that like?
Well, what had happened was, it's in Vegas. I would go back to Vegas in a second, but I want to
Sure.
go in as within. I would have to have a residency either as myself or with Funny Women because I'm not going to work.
Right.
When I was there, I was working for somebody. So what had happened was I was working the Riviera, which is no longer there. They demolished it, but the Riviera had a comedy club.
Oh.
And originally, it was the Improv Comedy Club, and then it was taken over by the Riviera. And the gentleman who booked the Riviera Comedy Club is a gentleman named Steve Sharippa,
Okay.
who you might know from The Sopranos.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Bobby Bacala, and he's on Blue Bloods now. And he and I went
Oh,
to
wow.
high school together.
Oh.
And I was one of the first people. He called me immediately, said, "When do you want to come in?" And I worked there for a long time. And this one week I was there, my son was a little baby, and I was there, and I was just like, oh, because when I would go away, when you go away for a week, I would bring pictures and try to make the room as homey as possible. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I can't leave. I felt terrible leaving my kid alone, without, leaving me. He was with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, God, wouldn't it be great if I could just find a place to just stay for a while? And I swear to you, the next morning I got a call from Sharippa, and he says, the woman who was in Crazy Girls had gotten sick, and they needed a replacement for the summer.
Oh, wow.
And I went, okay. And the only thing is I had to, if I was going to stay there, and at this point I was just staying for the summer, because comics, there's a great scene in Joan Rivers' documentary where she's talking about her book that she keeps all her dates. When she says, when this is empty, like she'll show something because this isn't good,
Right.
So that's how comics live by our book. So we book, like if people say to you, how you do it? I go, well, my book's not, So
Right.
anyway, so I was like, okay, I knew that I was staying there for the summer. So I was like, great, I'm making money for the summer. We'll figure out September. And the producer of that show decided they wanted me to stay on, and that turned into a 5-year run.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
I was about to go back to New York because I didn't want my son. I wanted my son to go to high school. I wanted him to go to school in New York, and then I got an offer for another show, and so I ended up staying in Vegas for 10 years. So that's how it all happened. It was, and the first week that I did that, because I was still being booked at the comedy club, so I think I did 28 shows that week.
Wow.
I'd open the comedy show, run in, do the part for the. Whoops, sorry about that. Did you hear the construction? That was
No, it didn't even come through, so it's working.
Oh, good. That's right. Okay, there's
Perfect.
a giant air horn. So I went back and forth. I was exhausted, but I did 28 shows a week, and that ended up there. I was there for 10 years.
That's amazing. And it's incredible to have that wanting to go back, but then it's coming up again and it's like drawing you back in to go for it even more, which shows that you're on the right path when things keep showing up, which is very cool. And I wanted to ask, because one of the ones I just recently watched of your stand-up and really enjoyed was your performance at the Friars Club. How did that come about? I mean, that's the roasts, that's everything, that's
I know.
history. So how did that one come about?
This young lady she was doing a show at the Friars,
Mhm.
and she basically just asked me if I could go, and I'd never played the Friars, so that made me very happy that I was able to play the Friars. And of
That's
course,
awesome.
if you saw the clip, it was very fun because there was a man in his 90s, and I think you
Oh, is
see,
that the one you kept picking on, like at the
yeah, that's the one
beginning?
that I kept going, don't die, just don't die, because
That's awesome.
I mean, he was having a blast, but
Good.
and that was before I came up with Funny Women of a Certain Age, so I wasn't used to playing to older people. So
Oh,
now it's we did a week in Delray Beach last winter, and it was all old people. Usually what I do when I
wow.
talk to the audience, because I open the show, because it's my show and I open the
Right.
show. So I always ask the ages, and I always start with my age, which is 65, and then I go lower. So I'm
Ah.
doing all that, and somebody in the back goes, go higher, go higher. There's older people here. And the people were 80, 90. There was somebody in their 100.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it was very funny. So now, of course, I love working with older people because I am an older people.
Hey, it works.
Exactly.
It works. You got to work with what it works.
Yep.
But yeah, I love talking all ages. I mean, my music taste is older. I love all the older stuff and all that. And
Right.
I've always, but I'm only 23, so I've been
I
in
was
this
going
for
to
a little
say, you're
while.
like 12
I'm
years old.
I'm like
So
12. Yeah, when I have the hat on, it like makes it even worse. But
yeah.
I love it. I love doing what I do and meeting people like you that have just shown that you just got to keep pushing through, keep
Oh,
making it work.
absolutely. I mean,
So,
I came up with Funny Women of a Certain Age when I was 59.
wow.
Okay. And the idea of, think about the network that I pitched to networks going, this is the idea, a comedy show, all women
Yeah.
and people of color, and they're over 50. I mean,
Wow.
in Hollywood, I'm considered already dead.
Right, right. Yeah. The lovely
So
Hollywood standards that they have.
yeah, so the fact that it came through and we got 3 specials out of it is pretty wild.
And that's amazing. And it's great to hear. I wanted to like kind of go off that. Any advice for future comics in the field to keep going? Any advice for that?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. I like that because it pushes you to do it.
No, you really have to love this.
Right.
Like because I also teach stand-up comedy. I work with people developing and directing solo shows. I do a lot of
Ooh.
stuff in the industry itself. I'm a writer. I'm writing a memoir right now.
Oh,
But the
amazing.
important thing is that you have to really, really, really love it. Because in the end, I started doing stand-up when I was 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm 65 now. So like I like to say, I could have killed people and been out of jail by now. I just put that out. But you really
Uh,
have to love it. And when I started, that's all I wanted to do. I mean, it's all I really want to do.
mhm.
But the drive was, going out. Like I'm 65, like I said, it's hard for me to go out like the way you're supposed to. When I tell my kids in my class, I'm always like, you have to be out there every single night, getting on stage and doing
Yeah.
spots. And it's a lot of work, but you have to love it. If you don't love what you're doing, then don't do it. That's really the best advice.
Yeah, and I've always lived by that, like personally too. And our show strives to live by the advice of you got to love what you're doing. It sometimes money isn't everything. Happiness
Yeah,
is over money any day, in my opinion, and it always has been. And it's
yeah,
actually kind of funny when I started getting work that I actually had money coming in. I'm going, oh, this is
yeah.
mine. Oh boy, and I could actually use it because as a musician, playing every night in bars where you just get tips and going out, and I finally landed those like monthly bar gigs that pay you really well. So I'm very excited for that. But they want more covers and then originals, and I write a lot, so I don't want to like just
What do you
sacrifice.
play?
So I play guitar,
Yeah.
bass and stuff, but I do a lot of like alternative rock music. And I just like was talking on Instagram. I just was in the switch of switching over my name to this like kind of indie band name, but one person. So I'm working on getting that out there and
That's great.
doing that. Just thinking it's time for a change, but under the same name for 10 years and it didn't go anywhere as much as I wanted it to. So starting new gives me a chance to grow
Right.
even more. So,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
yeah, I would the last question for you. Do you have a favorite place to perform? I mean, you've been so many places. I'm looking on the list,
Well,
but
my favorite
anyone in
place
particular?
will be the Wall Street Theater at Norwalk.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, we'll have to save that clip. We'll use that for promotion on the
My
channel.
favorite place is the Wall Street Theater in Norwalk,
Perfect.
Connecticut, July 29th, 8 p.m. You know what? I years and years and years ago, I had one play, and I really forgot the name of the theater, but I know it was somewhere in Washington, state of Washington. And this is when I mean, I had some success. Like I've done a bunch of in the 90s, the early 90s, there was just everyone was doing a stand-up comedy show. So I'd done that. And I remember going on stage, they introduced me at this theater, and it was one of the first theaters I ever worked. And when I went out, you can always tell when an audience knows who you are. It was the first time in my life when they said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Carole Montgomery," and people were cheering, and I was like, they know who I am. I was, it freaked me out. It was a lovely, wonderful feeling to have. But I prefer theaters than comedy clubs at this point, because like I remember one time I was putting in for one of the comedy clubs here in the city, and they like to book you for all the shows. So they booked me for 5 shows, and one's a midnight show, and I'm like, are you crazy? First of all, I'm sleeping by 10, so that's a problem. And the second one is, what am I going to have to say to these kids? I mean, look, my show, and the thing about Funny Women of a Certain Age, for the people who are listening, it isn't just for people of a certain age, because when we shot the specials, half of the show, the audiences were millennials, so it's not that type of show, but to stay up at midnight and have to it's not even the age, they're just drunk, and I don't want to battle. I'm one of the best at battling when there's a drunk, but I don't want to do it anymore.
No, it's not fun. I know we've had gigs at midnight with when I was doing band shows and teaming up with local record labels, and before I started my own label and everything, you go to play these midnight shows and you got these hecklers. I've never experienced a positive heckler before, which I'll be writing some jokes about, like the guy that's like, "You could do it, you are great," but he's so wasted that it's like, dude, I just want to play, but you're yelling at me while I'm playing, and I'm just like, I'm gonna hit you with this.
Right, exactly.
But it's great to have those experiences. But at midnight, you're tired, like you're drinking to stay up, just drinking caffeine just to stay up to make the jokes, and then your brain is like, bloop,
Right. Well, we used to have we had a midnight show at Crazy Girls in Vegas.
Oh wow!
So I wouldn't get home until like 1:30, and then I'd have to get up to take my son to school.
Oh, jeez.
So I like playing everywhere. I prefer theaters now. I really do. Awesome. I think theaters are great because people are coming to see, the great thing about the Funny Women brand is it's a brand now, and people know the show, and they know they're going to have a good time.
Right.
Because it's a great show. And I know we probably have to wrap up, but I do want to mention that
no rush.
Both Leanne Lord and Julia Scotti are two of the best, not female comics, the two of the best comics in the country. And I get very cocky when I talk about my cast, because we do a rotating cast. You guys, the Wall Street show is getting my A-listers. And these girls, I could leave. I don't even have to be there. That's how good they are.
Awesome.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because, a lot of people that go to comedy shows and they're like, I didn't like that. And it's like, well, you're going to like somebody on this show.
Right. And at least you have 3 now. You got 3 to choose from. Yeah.
Yeah. 3, if you don't like me, you're going to love Leanne. If you don't like Leanne, you're going to love Julia.
It's perfect.
And I'm very proud of the fact that, I can guarantee you're going to have a great time.
Carole, thank you for coming on the show. Can't wait to see you. We're going to have you at Funny Woman of a Certain Age, Saturday, July 29th at 8 p.m. at the Wall Street Theater, 71 Wall Street, Norwalk, Connecticut. So we'll get that in going for you, and I'll see whatever connections I can get for you and help you out there. So
I would love that. And then, are you going to come to the show?
Oh, of course. I'm going to bring my mom, actually. I think she'll enjoy it.
Please bring your mother.
Yeah, will do.
Bring your mother. Your mother will have the best time.
Awesome.